Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday. It's August 30th. This will be our chart listing for the day, and we really had a nice two-tiered down channel. Um, it didn't really, you didn't really know for sure we had a two-tiered channel here until here. I mean, I suspected it early this morning, but until this line was confirmed down here, it was kind of hard to know for sure. But when we touched here and bounced, you pretty much had to know this was a two-tiered channel. You really had to go ahead and play the trend line right here, because otherwise we should have gotten back up to these highs. And notice we made a little double top, and then we had a little trend working up a break, new high, and then this really confirmed that trend line right there. So I like that trade as well. And you can see how it took off. But I wasn't sure if this was going to be a two-tiered channel until you kind of had an idea where to put your line down here because of this low, but until it bounced there, it was hard to say what for sure what this was. But once you bounced here, you had to know this was a two-tiered channel, and you had to be playing this downtrend. But in the meantime, you could play the shorter term ones, and they all worked out pretty well. So um, anyway, let's back out a little bit, talk about the trades, and we'll go from there. But early on, I mean, when I came in, if you go to the far right side of the chart, you can see this is a trading range. I mean, there's your overnight lows at the time. We had a little failed break lower. That would have been a nice place to go long if you were trading there, but that's something like 5:30 in the morning or something. So we're working up. You get a break here, and you bounce off those lows again. You confirmed it twice there. That's not a great signal bar. This one really, it's probably close. It should be green. Um, but the way I would leave this is let it break higher and drop a limit order, just so you got room to get out before that high, just in case. I guess I probably should have it green for that matter. And that brings up a point. Somebody made a comment about a trade yesterday. Um, you know, thinking it ought to be green, and I made it blue. And looking at it, I can understand why he thought it should be green, and it probably could have been, but it could, there were enough reasons I liked it um, for blue. One thing I want to make sure is that a lot of people get confused. They think it has to be a second entry. It does not. When you've got a pretty strong trend moving, especially if it's a tight channel, you may not always get a second entry opportunity. So the only chance you're going to get to enter is take first entry. So it depends on the overall mood of the day, type of day, and things like that um, that can affect it as well. So, but also I want to throw in there. Sometimes my bias comes in. It's I mean, sometimes the trade is really just how you see it type call. And when I say my bias, in other words, if I like this trade enough that I took it, I might be more apt to make it blue than green if I didn't take it. So uh, we do have that bias in there, and there's just not much you can do about it because there is. This is not a mechanical system. What we do is not mechanical, and that's why you could always swing one way or another depending on who's looking at it, not what all they see, and how they're reading the price action and so forth. So I hope that's clear. But yeah, you could always probably make the argument if one's real close that it should be green, or maybe you should have skipped it altogether. But let me say this, and this is always the true test. If you are not sure, the correct answer is always do not trade. And I probably hadn't said that enough lately, but make sure you understand that because no trade sometimes is the best trade. If you're not 100% sure and you don't feel like you're reading it or you're 100% confident in your read, then just skip the trade because there will be one that'll come along that'll be almost a sure thing later. And so you're better off to wait on that than to take a chance on or gamble. People think you got to enter constantly or constantly looking for a trade, and that's the worst thing you can do. Your best trades are always going to be at the key entry points, and where are those going to be? That's going to be the lows and the highs of a trading range, and then uh, off the trend lines and the EMAs. And when the trend line and the EMA are close together and you get it set up, that's really good. And that was the way that trade was yesterday. It was right at the EMA, and right at the trend line too. So that usually gives it a little bit more, um, gives you a little bit more reason to want to enter as well. Here's one where it was right at the midline and the trend line, I mean the EMA as well. So you got two different things creating resistance right there. And look how it turned down off of it. So um, I didn't mark this one. Probably should have, but it's a first entry. There are two swings there, so that one probably, but it's not a real good signal bar either. So that's one that I didn't feel like I should even give it a green, just simply because at this point in time, I mean, it's obvious right there, but if you're looking at it the hard right side of your chart, we've just made two legs down, and really we don't have two measured legs, so that might, and we're expecting a new low because you got this trend line right here, this trend channel, and that's the first break, so you're expecting a new low, so that's more reasons. So that's what you're looking for your measured move right there, and look what we got. We went a little bit further because it probably needed to get to the trend channel line, so that was a perfect measured move. So that might have left you in that one too. So looking at it after the fact, I could almost mark that one green, but when I was looking at it in real time, I didn't think it was worth marking. So we'll go ahead and I'll mark that one green. But so hopefully that helps you understand what I'm thinking and looking at, and why sometimes it's a judgment call based on how you're reading it and how you see it. And but for the most part, if you're reading the price action right, we're going to see the same trades. There'll be some that are outliers like that you may see differently. So it doesn't mean anything good or bad. It just means if you're not sure, don't take a trade. Just watch it and study it real closely, and next time you see it, it might make more sense. So, but anyway, when we turn back here, I like entering because now you've got a higher low, and you've already had a failed second entry short. That was another reason I like this. It's off the key entry points, a failed second entry short. So your signal bar doesn't always matter. It is a little close to that high. So again, that one is borderline. I could make that one blue just as easily as I changed it to green. But when we made a higher low and turned down again and went up, I just enter because we're probably headed to this other side. I mean, that many failures at the low, we're going to the other side. And notice looks like a trend line. This is more flat really than it is a trend, but you still got to play that trend line and assume maybe that's your break and you're moving to a new high. And so it's really tempting to go short there. And you might have got lulled into going short there. And if you did, when it started going sideways here, I probably would have exited just in case. But it breaks higher, and then it's even more tempting to go short there. But with this thing kind of going sideways and pushing higher and failing each time to the short side, I would wait for a second entry off the high. And you never really get that till way down here, and then you're right back at the lows. So as much as I'd like to make this one green, I don't even think you can make it green. So because technically there's probably, I don't have it on here, but there's probably a larger channel here as well, even though you can definitely see. But if you draw those lines off the top, copy it, and bring it down, you can see there's another channel there. So that was another reason that I really didn't like going short on these. You could play that shorter term one, but there's a larger one there, and you really probably wouldn't have found that one till this right here. So you could have gotten fooled on that one, but you got a chance to get out of this one before it would have stopped you out. And somebody asked me that a lot, once it starts going sideways, once you get 4 or 5 bars there and it's congestion, if you can get a tick and get out, get whatever it'll give you and get out before it takes off and stops you out and costs you more. You got to be careful about that. I tell people not to monkey with their trades because a lot of times you'll think you're going to get stopped out and it goes exactly where you thought it was going to go. But in a situation like this, and you start stacking up there and you got dojis in there like that, I'd go ahead and exit. So this is not a doji right here. Even though it looks similar to a doji, This bar closed almost a tick off its low. Now this is a doji. It's more in the middle. There's a couple of ticks on each side. This is really a doji because there's one tick on each side. Um, this one's close. So once you got that many bars stacked up there, just exit. So and this is could be considered a failed break higher, but with that trend line possibly coming up through there, I wouldn't take it yet. Because we could, a lot of times these failed break lowers here are the low of the day, and we could have just kept going higher. Didn't happen. Now notice how we moved down. You get a break here, and like I said, there's your second entry counting off the high, and it did go higher and go out the low, but you just don't have any room before you get here again. It looks like you would have got trapped and it wouldn't have worked, but then it catches in here and you get this little bitty bar right off the low. This one is close. It could be blue almost. It's a second entry long, counting off the high. There's a little trap here. It's right off the low, a key entry point. All kind of reasons to like that to the long side. I made it green, but again, this one could be blue as well. I could make that argument as well. So notice we're moving up, and it looks like a trend working back higher. You get a break. This one, I wanted to mark this one, but you probably couldn't get in this one. Notice how there's a gap right there. This thing just closed there, opened there, and just kept going. And on my chart, it didn't pull back. You wouldn't have got filled even if you tried to enter it. Actually, if you could get filled, I guess it could be different on different charts. I would bake that one blue if you could get filled, but I just kind of skipped over it because I know that you couldn't get filled on my chart. So anyway, it's right off the key entry point, coming off the lows. We're probably headed back to the highs. Oh, I know why I didn't make that one blue. I wanted to make it green, but the reason I didn't is because you got a double top right there and you don't have room to get out before that high. And so the only way, so yeah, I probably should change it back to green. I'm glad I looked at it one more time and thought about it, because you don't have enough room to get out, and that was what to make it green, I really wanted it to have enough room to be able to let it break higher and drop a limit order, and you can see you couldn't have done that. So you wouldn't have had room to get out there. I think it still would have worked. Somebody sent me a little thing that puts some dots on here that I could turn on and off that makes it real quick and easy to see if it would have worked. And I'm having a hard time. High. So your entry with a stop would have been 78, 75. And the high, yeah, I guess it would have worked. You would have had enough room to get out. So, but still, you needed have enough room to get out of here for it to be blue, and it wasn't. So that's the reason I'll change it back to green. That's the reason I really didn't mark it, because I knew you couldn't get in it. So, but now you had your break, move to a new high. It's a little failed break above here. This is really going sideways. So I liked entering short right there. Nice bearish bar. Figure you'll probably come back and try to fill that gap. It ends up bouncing here again, but I don't like going long this time because we got a double pop high and a failed break, and you really don't have a whole lot of room to get out there. Again, you probably could argue for this one to be green, but when it comes up and it turns down right off those two swings there, that confirms that trend line. That's a big bearish bar. I like going short there. Again, you might use a limit order just to make sure you got enough room to get out here. But you can see this one takes off. And at that point, I would be looking for at least a measured move such as that right there. And you can see we went a little further and then started going sideways. And there's a turn down right there. There's a trend line working up there. It turns down. It tries to go higher once, tries to go higher again, and then confirms the trend line really on this next touch here, and a big bearish bar. But again, you don't have any room. This is the low of the day. And it's always a little bit dangerous, especially when you've already had a measured move pretty much. So that's why I made this one green. You could argue for this one to be blue because it's a failed second entry. Notice the move down, first entry, pull back second entry. Uh, but you're probably not going to trap a lot of people here. So um, this is not one that's probably going to fool people. But this pretty much confirms that, hey, we're kind of working lower. We got a downward bias for sure. And, you know, there's some reasons to consider that one. But there's just as many to consider not. And then, of course, I think we talked about this one a minute ago. We got two legs up. It never broke lower, so technically on this chart it's the first entry, but it is a second entry on a smaller chart. It's not the most bearish bar either, but it's the first break of this one. We don't have a measured move, but you could still argue at this point we weren't sure that we might get a measured move down to, when I say measured move, between this line and this line down to here. So weren't sure we were going to get that at that point. I wasn't sure this channel was right. I had a good feeling about it, but until it touches here and turns, you don't know. So you do have room to get out, but that's your first break, and it may turn back up and make another high before it goes down. So it's hard to say. And then of course it does bounce. It does bounce right there. Now you got a break, a new low, and even though it turned down off the trend line again there, you can't go short there because we should be headed back to the other side. You need some kind of trap. I notice you do look like you get a trap there, failed second entry long, so you might have considered going short there. But again, we just came off the low side, and now we're going sideways, and you can see the highs and the lows. I actually originally had this right there, and you might even could argue for it to be there and that this is a failed break lower. So but once it closed one lower, I just moved it down because you get some lower stems there. That's really the best fit in my opinion. Um, so you just don't have room here. You're just going to get whipsawed. I just stay out of that. There's no reason to enter it. And then notice what happens. You have a breakout pullback long here. And that's a big bullish bar. And even though you do, the reason this is just not blue is because you've got a break of this one coming up and a new high. But again, I think this is more sideways stuff. So this is like a breakout pullback long, and we should be going to the other side. That should be where prices are trying to head. Doesn't mean they'll be successful at it. You notice it had to come back and test that again before it finally got up there to the other side. So, and really by this point, you could argue that there's a whole nother resistance area right across there. So it's really just almost another range similar to the first one we had up here, except it's a little lower and it's actually a little tighter. Um, yeah, I made that one green for that reason. And we run up, and of course we turn down right here, but we had the break and now two legs up, and this was the previous high. We're a little ways away from the EMA, so I like that one just to pull back to the EMA. Hopefully it ends up coming all the way back down to the lows, and of course it bounces again, but notice you get a break, a new low, and then we test it again. So but again, we're back kind of in this little trading range, and there's just not much room before these highs. So I don't like entering there, but notice it makes that breakout pullback long. It's like a repeat pattern from over here. And then we finally head on up. So you could almost, again, argue for this one to be blue. But anytime you're entering out of this stuff, it's just suspect. But you can see there's some pretty strong support, and that's a higher low. And we did push through the EMA pretty easily right there, although we couldn't close above it. Notice we only closed.
Lost. Connection lost.
Sorry about that, but it only closed once, and then you got a doji in there. So this one's still a little suspect. It turns out to be a good trade, but we move on up. You get a failed second entry short right there, but you got to go long right into that possible trend line. And you got to be pretty sure now, the way this thing is laid out, that this is a channel, a valid channel. So, and Notice we get the break, we try to go higher once, we try to go higher twice, so that's a failed second entry long. It's a failed break out of here. It's a failed breakout pullback long. Lots of reasons to go short right there, and you definitely wouldn't want to go long right there. Um, so that one drops pretty quick. And this is a double top, so you can count this as a new high. Notice you get a first entry, you get a second leg down, a second entry, and it turns down right where if you pulled this line off the lows and pulled it over, it's turning down. Originally I had it, I don't know what's going on with my chart and stuff here. Um, Originally I had it over a little more, but I adjusted it some with that last close there. But that's a failed second entry long after two legs down, and it's still at the highs of this range, so you're expecting it to come down here, and we're probably going to try to make a new low. So this thing just shoots on down, and notice this is a breakout pullback short, and that confirms that trend line. You get a big bearish bar. You got to go low at the low of the day, but on this channel you got to assume we're going to get a new low. So I like that one. Again, that's one you could argue for to be green. You got a lot of congestion there, um, but all it is that people are hoping that it's going to bounce here, and but you got your other people that are selling because of the trend line. But there's a trap there the whole bit. I like this one to the short side, and so I made it red. And this one you could have ridden all the way down. Um, I wouldn't take this one this low in the day. You had a failed second entry short there, but you still don't have a new low off this channel. So again, I don't think I'd go long there, even though it's a trap that late in the day. But of course, you may want to take it. I mean, there's reasons to want to take that trade. You can see that trend line kind of working up through there. It's fitting real nicely. So if you got enough room to get back to here, maybe you take it. So maybe with a limit order. But I think with a stop, I don't think you quite have enough room there. It'd be real tight, and you can see it would have come back. It wouldn't have stopped you out, but turning back down off that trend line, I don't think I would have risked that to see if it was gonna tick lower and stop me out or not. I would have probably exited, but I just don't think you want to enter there that late in the day like that. So, but yeah, pretty good trading day. Mostly a downhill bias. There's a lot of sideways in here too. And this is really almost a repeat pattern of this up here. So, that might have given you a little more leverage to want to play these blue rather than green. But the overall bias is down more. It's kind of a down neutral because we're going sideways. But this two-tiered channel is the main pattern, and so I think it's downward to a neutral bias more than a neutral to down bias. So I hope that makes sense. But downward first, then neutral, versus neutral first in a bigger range and then downward. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, think about it for a few minutes and hopefully it will. It's kind of confusing, I know. So this has got a little long today, but there was a lot of things I want to talk about. So one other thing, somebody made a comment. I assume they're being sincere. Has anybody ever had success with this? I think that question is better answered by other people out there, but I will say this, there's a lot of people that have been successful using this strategy. There probably aren't as many that are successful that are still watching the videos, because as people become successful at this, they don't continue to watch the videos. I get emails from people, that say, hey, hadn't talked to you in a long time. I don't really watch the videos anymore. I don't really come to the website anymore, but I've got this down. I don't need you anymore. I've moved on. And that's what I hope to hear from most people. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have tried this that failed because they don't really understand the dedication it takes. And those people will probably fail at anything. No matter what strategy they use, those people probably will fail because only a small percentage of people are going to succeed at this. But if you really want to be successful as a trader, you need to be able to learn to read this chart, because that is the key. Knowing where prices are most likely going now Even then, you'll get fooled. But as you learn to read this chart, you'll know where prices are going. Just like when they touch down here, you would know that they want to go to the upper side. So you see they had trouble getting there, but where did it go before it turned down? It went to the upper side before it turned down. Same thing in these ranges. Where do prices go? They come off the high, they go to the low. They pushed it a little further down here, but look, and they stayed down here a minute, but where are they trying to go? They're trying to go back to the upper side. They get up here, where are they probably going to go next? To the low side. And there they go. Once it gets down here, where is it going to go? Back to the upper side. So really, we were in a range just going sideways trying to get from here to here. And if you can read the price action and understand this stuff, that's very helpful, because if you don't know that the bias is for prices to come back up here, you may be trying to get short every time prices get down here. And that's what happens. People don't have the courage to go short up here. They want to go short down here where they think it's low, we're confirming it. And that's the worst place to get short at all. You should be getting long down here, if anything. And same thing up down here. They want to get short down here, but they probably should be getting long down here, because we just came off the low side and we're headed back up here. So I hope that's helpful to people. But that's the key to this thing, is you can learn to know short term where prices are going. We don't know that prices are going to end up way down here today at this price, but we know that the price action rules tell us that prices are going to keep going down until they get a close outside this trend line. Then they're going to try to make a new low. Now, they could have made a new low right here and bounced. So we don't know exactly where prices are going. But even then, we probably had a good idea, because you could get a measured move from right here to right here and drag this over to here. And that would tell you that, hey, we're probably coming right down in here somewhere. And you can see we didn't quite get there, but that tells you something too. When you don't quite get there, that tells you we're probably going to go further in another direction. And notice what happens. We ended up going up the rest of the day. But we had a break of the channel, close outside, a new low, and you expect it to reverse after that. So the rules work. And does it take a long time to be able to sit here and do it in real time? You bet your bottom dollar it does. It's not easy. And most people come in here with a get-rich-quick attitude, thinking I'm smarter than everybody else. I got a high IQ, and I'm going to learn this real quickly, and I'm going to start taking everybody's money, and I'm going to get rich real quick. Well, if you come in here with that attitude, I can tell you what's going to happen. You're going to give your money to somebody else. You're going to be a donator, and you're going to leave discouraged and think that was the dumbest idea I ever had. But if you come in here realistically knowing this is going to take a long time, you're going to have to put in a lot of hard work. Just like trying to go to law school or medical school, it's going to take a long time, and you've got to put in a lot of hard work. You've got to pay your dues. But if you do that, you can be successful. And if you want to read some success, I know I could write anything in the world on my website, but go to my testimonials. My right hand, swear by my right hand, as God is my witness, those are all non-solicited testimonials. So go read them. There's some success stories from there from people that started just like anybody else that have had success. So, yes, there are people that have success at this. Do all of them? No. Are there a lot of people that walk away losers, that give up? You bet. But they're probably going to be losers no matter what strategy they go to. So, not to say that there may be that nothing else works. But if you really want to be successful at this, you need to be able to read this chart and understand what prices are doing. And if you can do that, and then you're miles ahead of 90% of the traders. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. That's enough for today. It's almost 30 minutes worth. So, but I hope you had a good trading day. I hope that you understand that if you are learning and trying to learn price action, coming in here and trading every day, and then at the end of the day closing your chart and going home and doing nothing else, you're never going to get better. The key to getting better at this is coming in here and getting as much screen time and trading time on the simulator every day as you can. And then once that's over, the real work starts by going back and studying all your trades first. And then once you studied all your trades, if it was a loser, study it until you figure out what you missed. If it was a winner, Study it, why it was a winner, figure out why it worked, make sure you were still reading things right, and then when you're done with that, go back to the very beginning of this chart and work your way all the way through it all day long and study it. Study each move, each pattern, try to find the trends within the trend, the ranges within the trends, the ranges within the ranges. And if you do that every day, you will slowly start to get better. You'll start to see it after the fact first. It's I can glance at this chart in 5 minutes and see most of this, but I couldn't do that in real time. I had to slowly, I started to see it after the fact first, and that's why I still do this video to this day, because it helps me get better. I still get better at this every single day, and I know that's hard to believe, but the more you do this, the more experience you get, the more you sit here and watch it every day, the more things you start to notice, and you will get better. But the key is not trading every day. It's trading, getting the screen time, and then coming back and doing your study time. I mean, literally, I studied 7 days a week. My wife hated me because even on weekends, I sat there all day Saturday, all day Sunday. I was studying charts. I was studying this. I was reading whatever I could find on price action. I was lucky that I had an old timer that showed me the ropes early on, that taught me the basics of price action, and so that gave me a head start. But I took the journey just like everybody else. I tried everything that didn't work. I'd trade something 2 or 3 times, I'd lose, and I'd move on to the next thing. And that's what happens with most people. And if you do that, you're never going to get there. Find something that works for you, or that seems like it'll work for you, that actually does work for somebody, and stick to it. The worst thing you can do is jump from one strategy to the next, because you will never learn anything. Anyway, it's been a while since I got on my soapbox, but I felt like it was a good time, and I hope that was helpful to you. And I can assure you, price action is the way to go if you can learn it. But don't expect that it's going to be easy. Don't expect that it's going to be quick, and just be realistic about it. And if you are, and you hang in there, most likely you will eventually be successful. So anyway, I'm done for the day. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.